One thing I've noticed in my years of leadership experience is that we're not vulnerable enough as leaders. Brene Brown, who is a professor, defines vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. She also went on to explain that if you replace the word vulnerability at the beginning of that sentence and replace it with leadership, so leadership as uncertainty, risk, and emotional vulnerability, that makes sense. And that's what she goes on to say, is that vulnerability and leadership go hand in hand. Both leadership and vulnerability require us to step forward and show up in a forum that exposes us. And so you can be seen as a courageous leader if you put yourself out there as vulnerable. A couple of things that Professor Brown stated as she was presenting this topic of vulnerability, she said two things that really caught my eye. Number one is that we need to have the courage to be imperfect, which I thought was a great quote. And number two, she said we need to lean into the discomfort. Now, is this easy to do? Of course it's not. It can be scary, and it's definitely a risk that you're taking. There's a lot of great benefits to it. You become more authentic as a leader, become more real to those that you lead. So, how vulnerable are you as a leader? One of the exercises that I have led with some of the executive teams that I've worked with is something called feed forward. Oftentimes we think about feedback, which are comments that we get after something has already happened, and did it go well, did it not go well? So feed forward is more forward thinking and forward looking. So this is how the exercise works. So what you do is that you yourself go into a meeting or a forum with several people around, your colleagues or your team, and you say, you know what, there's something that I already know that I'm weak in. And then what you do is you go around the room with your circle of colleagues or teammates, and you ask them to give you or to offer at least one recommendation or one suggestion to help you with that particular weakness. And as they do so, you don't argue back. You don't try to get clarification so much at that time. The only two words that you say at that time are thank you. I encourage you to try that the next time and go forward with something that you'd like to share, and then encourage those in the group also to share. So I encourage you to bring up this exercise, to lean into this discomfort, and have the courage to be imperfect and be the first one to stand and say, I'm imperfect, but I want you to help me.